Hey everybody, welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. I'm very excited. Excited is probably not the right word for it, but it's going to be an interesting show because we have some interesting things to talk about. Before I go anywhere, I want you all who are interested to make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and do all that stuff so you get your email in the mornings every time that we go live, which is, of course, every day. Now, if you do have any thoughts, questions, or comments, by all means, put them up in the comment section. That way we can put them up on the screen and discuss them, kind of like this one right here. Cody, good day. How's it going, buddy? And then we will carry on. Any thoughts or questions before we dive into the topic at hand?
I think every day is a good day hanging out with you guys, just so you guys know.
Well, I appreciate that. That's really nice. It is an anniversary for Matt and I, and that's why I want to talk about anniversaries of loss, and not just in terms of the negative aspect of it, but in terms of the growth that can come out of it and the building upon resilience as it is Resilience Week. So I'm going to give a little brief on why it's an anniversary for Matt and I, and then we can dive into kind of how we feel about anniversaries as a whole, and then carry on with the conversation. So August 20th, 2008, while Matt and I were overseas, we lost 3 great engineers in one IED blast, and it was a very traumatic day for a lot of us. And we still feel that loss, obviously, and therefore that's why it is a special anniversary for us. But I've come to a realization it's been 15 years, and this year especially has probably been the best that I have ever handled it. I was actually just out at my out with the horses with my doc, and I was smiling and laughing, and I was present in that moment. I was hanging out with the horses, whereas years ago I would be in a deep depressive state, wallowing away on my couch, not doing service to them. So things have changed quite a bit in the last little while, and I'm very excited to discuss this because I think that these particular anniversaries, especially of loss or trauma, can be a bit of a chink in the armor, for lack of a better term, when it comes to resilience. So that's my initial thought on that. Matt, you got anything to add in terms of
Just a quick clarification. I wasn't actually in Afghanistan during that time. I was actually teaching at the engineer school.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, I was teaching you guys to go over to Afghanistan at that time. Really? But the impact that it did have for us in the school was just as pronounced as you guys had overseas. Because with a lot of the individuals in that incident, we taught them through the school before going to Afghanistan, right? And 2 of them in particular, I actually lived with one, and I brought the other individual through his career on multiple stages. So when that incident did happen, it did impact me very much too as well.
I could have sworn you were on tour with us. My mistake, but
no, it's all good.
I just enjoyed your presence so much that probably would happen. Shaun?
Yeah, it's like what would Matt do?
Yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on anniversaries right off the bat?
Well, my thought is this. Could you please replay the 15 minutes in the green room yesterday where we covered this entire subject?
I mean, I could, but we could also discuss how in real time, being present in this moment. I think Shaun is frozen.
I think he's frozen.
Oh,
he's in a moment.
He's literally in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the recovery side of the house that was always hard. Sorry, Shaun.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It was the recovery side that was long for me too as well. I mean, you were saying how you went through depressive episodes too. And for me, it wasn't the actual anniversary of the date that hits me hard. It was because I was at the school and we were teaching them. It was always did I teach them wrong? Or was there something else I needed to teach them to be able to be here with us? So that's been an impact on me. And when I'm teaching other individuals in the kitchen or wherever else, coaching, that kind of stuff, that always comes in the back of my mind every once in a while. It's like, are you teaching them right? Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing enough? Are you doing enough? Right. Mm-hmm. So that's where my depression comes from in regards to that incident too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Shaun, go back to you.
Sorry about the glitch there. Yeah,
it's all good.
So, as I was saying, I think this subject could be covered in less than 15 minutes, just like we covered it in the green room yesterday. And that was this unhealthy connection to a moment of a long time ago that is you begin categorizing as, now it's my day to wallow in my sadness, rather than taking the day to reflect and live your life to the fullest based on the sacrifice of the men who were killed. And so losses all around us. You guys are much younger than I am by about 20 years. And guess what? As you get older, more people die that you know. And that is life, man. That I'm not, this is me now being very careful not to diminish the memory of everyone who's passed away. This is me just simply stating the plain fact that people we know will die in our lives, and it sucks, but it is part of life. And too many people bury their head in the sand on the subject. The moment that another person dies, their world falls apart as if they didn't understand that people die. People die. One of us could die today, and we would all mourn it. But here's what I wouldn't do a year from now. I would not wallow in my own personal sadness, because it's disrespectful to the man who died a year ago, as far as I'm concerned. If someone dies in service, a year later, I'm doing my best that day to live a mega life, the life that they can't live because now they're dead. So I treat it as this. I'm going to double down and live for them, rather than take the day to wallow in my sadness and backslide. And I know that sounds really bizarre or harsh or cruel or disrespectful or whatever, but I find it to be disrespectful when someone wallows so much on an anniversary that they make it all about them rather than about the man or the woman who passed away on the anniversary, as it were. So that's my first thought.
It is a great point, and you did say we were talking about it in the green room for about 15 minutes after yesterday's collective, and I talked to my doc about it today as well. Was the fact that I was so entrenched in my own, as you said, sadness, but I was wallowing really in the fact that I felt bad, and then I would utilize that as an excuse to just suck, and so I would spend the day sucking, or I'd spend multiple days just being, sitting on my couch feeling sorry for myself, rather than engaging life like I have been over the last couple years now, which has actually been a much more beneficial way to do this. So let's get into then not only.
Sorry, and the reason, and I want to preface it with the reason that we got into that hard conversation yesterday is because you'd said to me, tomorrow's going to be a bit rough, and it's an anniversary, and I kind of said, why? And well, because every year, and then you started telling me about back in the day, it'd be 3-4 days prior to the anniversary that you'd start thinking about the anniversary, and you'd start sucking. Mm-hmm. And you sucked right up through the anniversary, sucked on the anniversary, and then sucked after the anniversary. And you'd normalize that into, it became all about the center of the universe, woe is me. It wasn't about the men, it was about you. And so, again, I stated, this is just my thoughts. It's not that I'm trying to insult anyone. I think it's disrespectful to treat an anniversary of someone who has died and make it all about me. It's got to be about them. And if I'm making it about them, I shouldn't be wallowing in my own sadness because now it's about me. I should be reflecting on what they brought into my life and how I can use that to make the world a better place rather than making it a suck place. So I know I was challenging you yesterday to break out of your funk, but my approach is maybe different than others' approaches. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the men. I'm trying to respect the men by living a full life that they died on my behalf to live a full life.
Yeah. You know what? And I agree with you. Now, I think 5, 6 years ago, I probably would have, probably would have fought you on it a little bit and tried
For
to make
sure.
it again, make it more about me.
For sure, there'll be
But
people who are listening to me say this right now who will be annoyed with me
yeah,
because I'm putting it across directly, bluntly, to the point without making it nuanced or sensitive or using the right tone in my voice. I'm just putting it out there as a challenge to pattern interrupt anyone who has spent over a decade wallowing in their own personal little center of the universe sadness when it's nothing to do with you.
yeah,
It's everything to do with the memory of who you're supposed to be anniversarying.
yeah. Matt, you got any thoughts?
No, I agree with Shaun too as well. And like death is something that happens pretty much, every lifetime for everyone. So no, I agree that it's respecting the individual in the moment, not woe is me and for yourself. And just kind of, I don't know, like it's a different thing for everyone. And you speak like some good wisdom, but I mean, other people process differently. For me, that incident turned me into a better teacher, better coach, because I literally was, am I doing it? I did not want to have that feeling again. And so I empowered myself to be better for other people in that regards, right? That sometimes is a negative too as well, pushing, that aspect. But yeah, it's all different for all different people. And I think it's a matter of healing, understanding that you can't woe is me over separation. It's not about you, it's about them and honoring them. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now the trick is that, as you said, Matt, the everyone does do it different, and I please, for the love of all things good, I hope that no one out there thinks that I'm so callous that I'm ignoring the anniversary. I'm quite the opposite. I'm going to note the anniversary. I'm going to respect the anniversary, but I'm going to make it about them, not about me. And as I've stated a number of times now, but that doesn't mean that the moment that someone dies, I look at the calendar, circle a year from now, and think, and a year from now, I'm going to make it all about them. Because that's not the way life works, man. If you have someone close to you who passes away or is killed in a violent manner, we'll say, it's traumatic. It's traumatic to some degree, depending on who you are, who that person was, how it happened, how much death you've processed in your life or not. It's still going to be traumatic, either 1% or 100%, depending on who you are. That's the trauma that you've got to process. And everyone processes it differently, like Matt said. And I think that as humans, until we've done a whole pile of processing through a number of deaths, the first few are like they're challenging. We have to make it about us. We have to make it about them. It gets muddy until you figure out how to do it in a way that works best for you. And that might take a few different approaches to figure out who you are in respect to death. But what does not work for me is someone entering into the anniversary moment on year one, not understanding themselves at all, not understanding the moment at all, and then 50 years later, they haven't changed their pattern at all. The anniversary is still the same. It's muddy. There's no growth out of it. There's no clarity on it. There's no understanding of it. It's just that the anniversary becomes suck every year. And then that suck becomes I suck in the moment because now I'm making it about me every year. And therefore, I feel that everyone has a responsibility on these kind of anniversaries to get some good out of it for ourselves and for those around us. I think that's our responsibility, but I don't think it's like from 0 to 60 miles an hour in a split second. In other words, the first year anniversary, no one needs to be so enlightened that they just shrug their shoulders and say, big deal, it's a 1-year anniversary, non-factor, I've already processed that. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you've got to consider the moment for what it is. You've got to figure out what your role in the moment is. And then you've got to realize that next year it'll be easier. And the year after that it'll be easier. And the year after that you'll do it better. And the year after that it'll become more comfortable, and etc. No, I'm not saying that within a couple of weeks you've got to brush all of this stuff off and get on as if nothing had happened.
Yeah. I think this is a challenge too, as you said it quite well, in the fact that you have to understand yourself. If you don't understand yourself, then it is very easy to pin a part of yourself to that date. And then every year you're bringing yourself back to a position that you were in 10, 12, 15, 25 years ago, whenever that was, instead of continually evolving that day into something new, into something more, I guess, to say the least. Because for me, I realize now, looking back on it, was that I had no idea who I was. And I had no idea how to manage all of the emotions that I was going through. So what I would do was repress them. And by repressing them, I was creating a position for myself to fail, because you can't repress things forever. And then they would spill out. And then because they spilled out, I would then reflect on myself poorly, because I wasn't being able to control my own emotions, because I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know how to process those emotions to begin with. Whereas now, the last couple of years, I've actually taken the time to process the emotions, to feel the emotions, to feel the sadness, to feel the fact that they're gone, and then realize that, man, I can't do this forever. This is not a continual cycle, that I want or that I can maintain. So let's move forward. And I have been over the last, this will be the 3rd year, I guess, now, where I've been doing quite well, actually, for the day. So it's quite interesting. But I got a couple comments here. Any thoughts before I step into it? So Salty Jinx says, 1, I wish this had been a topic years ago at work. And number 2, I wish it had been something I viewed as moving forward, and going harder is the best way to honor them, which is, I think, fantastic. It's a great point, though, about wish it had been a topic years ago at work. This is something that the military doesn't really talk about. While I was in, right? Yet it happens so often. So it seems
it's so bad it's counterproductive bad. Yeah. I wish I could just say it's the worst, and that's a neutral statement. It's the worst in the sense of it pushes things backwards bad.
Mm-hmm. So, well, let's think about this then. Not only in terms of loss, but in terms of, traumatic injury, or I think of like Mark Ormrod or any of the other people I know that are, explosive amputees who allow, I've heard the term the alive day, and I've seen people go downhill as it comes up to those alive days, and then they come back up in a similar manner. Let's talk about that style of traumatic incident, because loss it's a constant, right? We can sit here and kind of talk about it for a while, but I think we've hit the mark on that. What about traumatic incidences of things that completely change your life into a different? This just popped in my head, Shaun. You said you blew your ACL on a world championship training program, right? Like that career's done now. And so the processing of that must be challenging in the moment. But do you ever have like the anniversaries of like, oh man, this was when that had happened?
Never. In fact, here's how I run my life. I'm lucky if I remember my own wedding anniversary, because anniversaries aren't a thing to me. I mean, as I've said before, I live in the now. The past is in the rearview mirror. That's only wisdom if I reflect on it. The future is unknown. So what am I anniversarying against? The thing that's in the rear view mirror that has no consequence in the now? I just don't live that way. I might, like if I put up an old photo as an example on my Instagram feed or stories or whatever, that's just me reflecting. That isn't me running my life around it. It's a pop-up from my Microsoft OneDrive. Oh yeah, I guess 13 years ago I was like shredding or whatever. And that'll make me think about what kind of a man I was then, the differences between then and now. These are reflective moments to me. They're not an anniversary of that takes me back to the moment and I wallow in the moment. What it might make me do is take a look at 13 years ago and think, I could shred then, but now I can shred better. Bam. That's my reflection on that kind of stuff. When I blew my knee or when I did this or when that happened, all of the anniversaries, all of the things, forget about it. I'm not interested in them because they have no bearing in the now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I do want to remind everybody watching, by all means, put in your thoughts on the comment section. Absolutely, we want to hear how you guys work through anniversaries. That'd be great to know. Matt, you got any thoughts on traumatic incidences?
Traumatic? I've been really lucky, actually. There's one traumatic incident I want to really talk about, but it's not really an anniversary as it is. I survived it, and I just keep on going from that. Another, I guess, just recent one was that I finished a contract working in a kitchen, and a couple of days, a week or so after the fact, actually went through a huge depressive moment. And it kind of goes to the whole with the Shaun in his athletics career. I found out I was actually going into like a post performance depression where like I was going so hard and so fast and so good, and all of a sudden it was nothing. So that became an incident too to reflect on for myself. It's like, hey, that's why I'm feeling so down, is because I did good. So let's focus on doing good and not actually focus on the fact I'm not doing what I was doing good at, and turn it into more of a learning lesson versus wallowing on my couch, sipping on beers and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Traumatically, no, like life has been pretty balanced. I hate to say I'm like Shaun in this regards, where it's not really anniversary to remember and feel sorrow. It's an anniversary to remember and grow from things. You look back, it's like, yeah, you know what? I was couldn't bake bread 4 years ago, and now all of a sudden sourdough is like on my menu like every other day because it's fun to do. So, yeah, it's just how people process it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction, Matt. That it's a very powerful thing if you can engage in it, in the sense of a year ago, I sucked. Today, I suck more. I still suck, or I suck less. That's the question that we should all be asking ourselves. And if 10 years ago you laid down on your Netflix couch, and every year at the anniversary of laying down on the couch, you think, well, I still suck. Forget about it. That is so lame. That's the kind of thing that infuriates me. So anniversaries to me are a moment of reflection to see how much I have grown as a human being. Not even how much better I'm doing, I'm saying growing. Because you can grow as a human being, and from an external perspective, it might look like you're backsliding a little bit, but internally, you've grown from a year ago. So you might still be on the couch, you might be a bit fatter and lazier, but if you've grown internally and you can say, I'm 10% better, or I've pushed some of that stuff down, or I've cleared some of that stuff out, or I've figured this thing out. If every year you can, on the anniversary of your suck, say I suck less, well, now I'm a fan. But if you every year say I still suck as bad as I did 10 years ago, dude, I just want to cuff you upside the head. And so that's me, because I'm hard on that kind of stuff. I will not accept someone taking a hallway pass for a decade. It's bonkers to me. So anniversaries every year, when they're occurring, that's the opportunity for someone to reflect on how much they've improved, not how much they've sucked.
And that can be even brought down to the microcosm too, like your Friday afternoon anniversary from last Friday afternoon. Am I still
Agreed.
sucking from last Friday, or sucking again this Friday? We're using suck too much. We're going to change the word to something else.
It
But
starts,
yeah,
it starts
that's
to have a connotation to it, doesn't it?
yeah, no, it's lack of improvement. Anyways, but yeah, you even take it in like microcosm and think about it in smaller aspects of things. I mean, that's positive growth, even just reflecting on it, because eventually it's going to go, yeah, I'm less than I was. I'm more than I was last time. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. My doc today mentioned this kind of out of the blue. I was telling you, Matt, a second ago, but we were out at the horses and I was working with her. And normally I would engage the horses directly. That was my standard practice. I would immediately get there and walk myself into the middle of them and then try to engage them, making it more of an active session for me. But I didn't today. I actually stopped about 15 feet away from them and I just kind of watched them. And the word she used was, there's a stillness about me, rather, that she hasn't noticed for, because I haven't physically seen her since April. And it took me a second to kind of actualize that word into the fact that I had spent many years trying to create a veneer of stillness or stoic nature or calmness or what. I tried to create this image of being flat. But by creating that image, I was actually utilizing all of the all of the psychological capital that I had in order to cover up all of the issues that I wasn't dealing with in the moment, which to say now seems so silly. Whereas recently, in the last year or so, I've actually put so much time and so much effort into accepting and understanding and learning from myself that I can now sit and be still, even amongst the horses, even amongst the environment of psychology, right, of being in a session. And I think that, as you were saying, Shaun, in terms of the anniversary portion of it, the idea that anything would continually come up from the past and affect you physiologically is, I'm allowing it to happen. Because if I'm not engaging it every year and doing it better, or every day and doing it better, then I'm choosing to accept that that is the standard. And the standard is a downward slope, or sorry, as a standard as a downward slope is not a good standard. At least in my thoughts.
Actually, there's something more dangerous than that, in my opinion, and I see it happening, and that is assigning a moment, whatever that means to anyone out there, an anniversary or a day or an hour or a certain week or whatever the case is, a certain way a sunrise rises. And we assign that as our victimization, where we become a victim to some degree of the moment, whatever that means. It could be traumatic deaths of friends. It could be the certain spot on the hill where that sun rose, and you maybe tried to, I don't know, do something nice. Let's say get married. You propose to someone.
Creating a high water mark.
Correct. You assign a moment in time that can become an anniversary moment to either a good or a bad thing. Now, the good thing, we'll call it the proposing to someone on the sunrise. Well, maybe 4 weeks later, that person says, "I hate you," and they leave. And now you go back to that same spot every year, you watch that sunrise, or maybe you're driving your car down the highway, not even exactly a year later, and you see the sunrise in a certain way, and it reminds you, and then it becomes all about you. It becomes all about how sad I am and how screwed over I got and how I got dotted. And so I think that anniversaries can become insidiously bad for us because we assign a thing, that sunrise, that hill, that moment, we assign that as almost looking forward to it because it gives us the ability to get out of our flatline fake life. It allows us to feel something like, I'm super sad, or I super hate, or I whatever. It amplifies the emotion up enough out of our almost zombie-like life that it then becomes important to us and we latch onto it and we look forward to it a year from now, or we look forward to it every Friday where we get super emotion and now we feel something and now we're looking forward to feeling that thing. You see what I'm saying? The insidiousness of an anniversary for someone who is out of the game, checked out, well, they can make that anniversary the most important thing in their life because they're not living a full life. To Matt's point, where once you start getting after it, once you start filling your life with all kinds of things that are filling your life, well, you'll have far less time to every single day think about that sunrise that made you so sad because you're actively producing in society or actively producing yourself. You're actively busy engaging in a forward progressive lifestyle. But if you're every night you're laying on the couch and not moving, what's occupying your mind other than Netflix? It's probably anniversaries. It's probably those screw-overs. It's probably those that time that guy did or that time that guy that said ... These are the kind of things that I feel are insidious when we latch onto them as if we're looking forward to them because we need that emotion.
That's a great point. Matt, you got anything to add to that?
No, not really. Emotions is something that you have to process too, though. So take that time to actually allow it to process and let it work through it. I think that's needed too as well. But yeah, again with Shaun, not turn it into a negative or something you can't utilize for a positive for yourself or someone else, and also disrespecting the incident, the anniversary, right? I think that's more harmful than spending a couple moments to kind of reflect. And those moments can be like 20 minutes, I'm done, let's go. Or it can be 5 years trying to process it if it's something really, really close and traumatic, right? Something that impacts your life will definitely take more time to actually work through and find a positive, something to strengthen, grow from that.
Yeah, I think there's an added point here too in terms of being careful not to engage all of the things in order to not feel those feelings.
Agreed.
And I think we've seen a lot of people there who just throw themselves into the next thing without taking the time to actually process that. And I think that's especially in the military, that happens way too often.
Well, one of the important things about the word anniversary, if we're going to assume that it's an anniversary every year, if each year you're sadder, that's a failing report. I mean, that's an F. If every year you're feeling the same, but just 1% better, I consider that as a C, not an F. If you want to move towards a B or an A, you've kind of got to move the needle on the anniversary. And what do I mean by that? I mean, just get better, whatever that means to you. Find a way to process it. And that's not like, I think one of the tricks about anniversaries is you're not supposed to start the process one day every year. It's a process that is supposed to happen every day throughout the year until a year later you can do a report on yourself. Am I still an F or did I get a C, B, or an A? And without that, that's now Groundhog Day. Every year you get to wallow in the sadness of a failing report till 20 years later, you're still banging out Fs.
I think the trick with the Fs is that it, you said it earlier, is it allows people to actually feel something. And you alluded to it a little bit earlier too, and that it clicked into my head was, when you're 20 and you're out partying and you're looking forward to Friday night because you work all week and it's just kind of blah, and then Friday night you're going to go out and party with your friends, and then Saturday you're going to have a hangover, and then Sunday you're going to try and get some stuff done, and then you restart the week. and then you start looking forward to Friday. You start looking forward to
That was
Friday.
called the Airborne Regiment.
Yeah.
Wait, there's something engineers.
Yeah, I'm sure there was something like that. But that's the Groundhog Day, that if we don't actually take the time to look at it and engage it, all of a sudden it's been 10 years, and now you're the 30-plus-year-old who's going to the bar trying to pick up 20-year-olds who looks very weird doing it, right? So I think it takes that ability to actually engage the thought process. There's an intention there that you need, that if you don't have it, it'll just keep playing out. And yeah, it's a tough one. Any other thoughts? I got another comment here from Salty. Okay.
Grief is just go ahead.
Good. No, you go.
It's also a habit forming too, and if you recognize it as a habit, like every year I do this habit of being, down on myself because of this incident, or every Friday night it's a habit to go out and try to pick up 20-year-olds. If you can break that habit, that's when the healing starts, and you're actually starting, hey, wait a minute, I'm doing this, but why?
That's a great point.
Yeah, I look at it as a pattern interrupt. And I think that this is precisely what I tried to do for Remembrance Day. As you guys might remember, that little video initiative trying to spread across Canada, get guys and girls to break out of their pattern interrupt, try to make them think differently about Remembrance Day, maybe deeper or outside of their own box or what have you. I mean, the definition of Groundhog Day is repeatedly doing the same thing every single day, or every single year, once a day, every year. It requires some out of the box thinking to move forward, move the needle on yourself and on the country, as it were. And so any anniversaries that are locked into this is where we don't try to move forward. That kind of an anniversary is not my kind of anniversary, as it were.
Matt, you got any points on that?
No.
Okay.
Let's hit up Salty.
I'm going to hit that in a second, but you bring up a really good point in terms of Remembrance Day. And I think this is, it just kind of crystallized in my brain as you were talking, was the fact that the first chat we did, the three of us, was in March, and we talked about lip service. And we talked about how, people will do things that are disingenuous because that's just how things are done or have been done in the past. And unfortunately, Remembrance Day has kind of got to that point where we have many people just paying lip service to the remembrance ceremony without really thinking about it, taking the time to really process it. And why are we doing this? What are we here for? It's just show up, do the whole thing, drop your poppy off out the door, and then you carry on with your day. So I think you brought up a great point in that that is something that is so difficult to get out of if everybody's in that Groundhog Day, right? To then step away and say, oh man, how do we do this differently? Because that's the way it's been done for 70, 80, 90, however long you want to do it, right? So that's a great point. I just wanted to...
And it's a perfect case study or a perfect example because, tell me if I'm wrong, at least I know people like this. Maybe half a year out from Remembrance Day, they've given zero thought to Remembrance Day. A month out, they've given zero thought to Remembrance Day. The day before, it's when they start thinking about Remembrance Day, because what they're going to do is they're going to check their weather app to see how cold it's going to be on Remembrance Day. And the first time they think about Remembrance Day is this: will I have to wear my down jacket, or can I just wear my favorite black jacket? Whatever that means to them. And so they'll plan Remembrance Day around the inconvenience of how cold is it going to be, or is it going to rain, or am I going to have to wear something that is going to make me sweat, or whatever. The planning for Remembrance Day revolves around how inconvenient Remembrance Day will be, not about what it's freaking about. So the idea of what it's supposed to represent, the reflection and the gratitude for the service and sacrifice, that kind of, it's almost disappeared to a brief moment in a day where someone plans their outside time to be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually kind of interesting because I had this debate with somebody about Remembrance Day becoming a holiday and being a day off from work, and like no one, and they were all like, "Oh yeah, no, it's so that everybody can take the time to, create the day and make sure that." And I'm like, that's not going to happen. A day off from work for the average person is going to be a day off from work, and that's all it's going to be. It's not going to be a time to. It's not going to be about taking the time, and I actually really like the fact that the country almost stops working for 2 minutes. Right. Traditionally, I mean, when I was a kid, that's what I saw a lot of times, was that if you weren't at a ceremony, you couldn't get to a ceremony if you had to work or whatever. At 11 o'clock on November 11th, everything stopped. Traffic stopped. Businesses stopped. The people at the grocery store stopped moving. Everyone just sat there for 2 minutes and then carried on with their day. And I found that much more poignant than it was to make sure everyone was at a ceremony or to have a day off so that everyone could go to a ceremony or whatever. That's just my thoughts on it. Any other thoughts before I hit this comment here? Good to go? Okay. Salty says, I also think we need to accept that we need to feel it. Let it burn through and exhaust the feelings so that it can move on, and the faster we face them, the sooner we return to functioning or exceeding standards. And I really like this last line here. It says, faster we face them, the sooner we return to functioning or exceeding standards. But this works in every regard, not just in terms of anniversaries. If you want to get healthy and you engage nutrition and fitness and so on and so forth quickly, then you will get healthy faster than you would not, right? So it's such a crisp line. You guys got any thoughts on it? Matt?
No, I agree. But also, you don't want to rush it too. If it's like something traumatic or something, you need to work into it and then push and exceed after the fact. I don't think just disregarding it and say, tomorrow I'm good to go, let's go, keep on doing what I'm doing. You need that time to reflect and let things kind of process in the brain before you can actually exceed and keep on functioning faster and harder.
Mm-hmm. Shaun?
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the great things that a person can realize is that you can do it by yourself, or you can do it with others. You can do it with a team. And so if you want to push the pace on getting right with the moment, you can do it in isolation, or you can do it with others. One of the great things about doing it with others is that as you're doing it with them, you can observe the different ways that it can be done. The common goal is getting better, but there's many vectors that a person can select in order to achieve that getting better. And so if I select the way called D and Chance selects the way called G, well, as I observe Chance, I can see the ways that it's working for him and the ways it's not working for him. And I can then start hybridizing my own model, taking the good and observing the bad and figuring out what is right for me, the perfect porridge temperature, as it were, and enjoying my forward progression by observing how it's done better by others on the team. So anniversaries, particularly deaths, there's, as I said, as we all get older, we'll see this more and more. And as we gather together to, as a collective, acknowledge and reflect and appreciate and grow out of that anniversary, we should be doing that with an eye towards how we can evolve out of the moment rather than backslide in the moment.
That's a great point. Matt, you got anything else
Nope.
on that? Okay. Winterstorm kicks in with his comment. He says, if you don't feel you deserve to be able to move on from something, you will not move beyond it. You will push it down each year until you can't ignore it and then relive a year of not deserving it. Which is a great point, too, in the fact that I was actually just telling my my oldest this last night was Henry Ford has a great quote that applies to basically everything. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that kind of applies to it for this especially. You guys got any thoughts on it?
No, other than, can you just put it up real quick again,
Yep,
please?
absolutely.
And I know that Winterstorm 427 understands this. I don't want to categorize it as you'll push it down each year. You'll push it down each day.
Mm.
And that's the point that I'm trying to make, is anniversaries aren't on the 365 days later cycle. They're on the 1 day cycle. And every day you're building towards that 365 days from now, where you get to sit in the moment, in the fullness of it, and give yourself a failing mark, a C, a B, or an A.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's quite interesting. 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, I was in the mountains on this day, and I remember sitting in the water, in like a lake, up to my shins with my fishing rod, watching the clouds go by, reflecting upon this same anniversary. That I would grade myself now as probably C, comparatively to a long a lot of years of Fs. And last year, probably a B, and this year I'd say probably a B as well. But again,
B
we've only
plus.
B plus. Okay, I'll give it to you. But it's the ability to look back on it and see growth that then I think speeds up the process as well, because you can start seeing proof of concept, like, oh, this works. Oh, okay, I can actually move forward. Awesome, awesome. I got another comment here. But yeah,
Don't flash by that really quick, because that might be the most important thing that's being said today. What you just said is the idea that by self-reflecting and see the forward growth, you're gaining some self-worth in the moment. You're gaining some self-satisfaction in the moment. You're gaining some self-sense of direction in the moment. You're seeing that you're doing it right. You're seeing the improvements, and taking the time to reflect back on the anniversary of a year ago, a C versus a B this year, we'll call it. Well, that's encouraging. That should be encouraging to anyone. The forward progression of, we'll call it leveling up out of the possibility of wallowing in the sadness. I'm not throwing sadness under the bus. I'm throwing wallowing under the bus. And so the reflection chance where you felt that you had done it better, that's super important. Not just the fact that you've evolved that relationship with that moment, but that you understand that you are getting better at this.
yeah, 100%. And one of the key moments has been the collective. This has been one of the things that I have been able to look at and say I have had 200 plus deep, thoughtful conversations that made me engage the moment right now here while we're chatting, rather than projecting or reliving. I've been able to engage 200 plus times every day. It's been fantastic. So it's been my
You
pleasure.
you'd said something earlier where for about 10 years you were, I forget how you categorized it, a veneer of
Yeah.
that's just, as I listened to that, I was thinking that's fake chance.
Yep.
That's chance faking it. Fake
Yep.
life. Fake life. And you can call it a veneer. You can call it a 1 inch layer, a 2 inch layer, a 12-foot layer of veneer. It's just fake. It's us faking our life. And that's so disingenuous. And it creates that cognitive dissonance where we're faking it and we know we're faking it. And what does that make us? That makes us uncomfortable at some level. And whether it's a subconscious level or a conscious level, either way, it's still dissonance. And dissonance is not a good place to be hanging out for a decade. So the important part is if you feel that you're having to put on a veneer, change that word into fake. So if you feel like you've got to fake it, now you're titling yourself as a faker. And who wants to be called that? I certainly don't want to call myself that. And I'd be insulted if someone walked to my front door and called me a faker. So at some point, I guess, maybe for a brief moment, you got okay with being a faker. But now you're not. But that's I don't want to gloss over or veneer over the comment and just kind of shrug my shoulders and say, oh, that's cool. He was faking it. Let's carry on with the conversation, because I don't want anyone out there faking it. The classic, we've talked about fake it till you make it. I'm not good with that. Own it until you make it is more correct for me.
Absolutely. Matt, you got any thoughts?
No, I like that. Own it until you make it. That's good. No, I think you're doing good. I think B+ this year is better than your C last year, or it's all about growth, buddy. And you can't, this goes in general, but you can't punish yourself if all of a sudden your B+ becomes a B again. You can't go, oh, I can't do it. Yes, you just have to keep on. Yeah, that was today. Today was a B day. Tomorrow's going to be an A+ day. Let's rock her, right?
Yeah.
And carry it on that way. You can't just keep on punishing yourself for not being what you want or need to be. You'll get there. You just have to keep on moving forward.
Yeah, and the other add-on to that is, and we can't punish ourselves for the past. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can reflect on it and think, jeez, how embarrassing. But we can't keep punishing ourselves for it. Much like deaths of friends. Through their death, we shouldn't be every year punishing ourselves by wallowing in it. What we should be doing is, I'm not saying rewarding ourselves, I'm saying growing out of it rather than rewarding ourselves. And by the way, this is actually an important subtopic, is on that anniversary, if you take that anniversary and make it so much about you that then it turns into a party, like in your head, where you get stone cold drunk and pass out through that moment. As I see it, that's not a healthy way to reflect on the importance of the moment by totally bypassing it and getting drunk as a skunk and not facing the moment, as it were.
It is a great point. And I mean, we all know that the military loves to just bypass the moment by getting really drunk. It is one of those things that is, I think, as of lately, I mean, I can't say I've been out for a while now, but from what I've seen and from people who are still in, that culture is slowly changing, which is good to see.
That's good.
But it is still a slow change. So I do have a comment here. Any other thoughts before I jump into this? Okay. So Vanessa Chaos says, I tend to reflect on whether I'm making the departed proud and where I could improve to do so. Personally helps to honor their memory and makes the loss more positive. That said, grief is a personal journey. There you go. Comment of the day, I think, on that one.
Legit.
Yeah, 100%. It's an interesting point, and I really love this to make the loss more positive. Because it's not ever, I don't think it's ever going to be like a positive thing. Like, hooray, this person's gone. Depending on how you feel about the person. Yeah. But it really is, if you turn it into something more positive, if you can turn it into a learning moment or an evolution moment or something that you can actually, again, look back on each year and reflect upon, or each day and reflect upon it and say, how am I doing this better? Because I love this comment. It's awesome. Any thoughts on it before we move on?
Yeah, I just think it comes down to, if someone's worked like a dog to make my life better and then they die, I'm going to respect that. And I'm going to do my part to pay them back, as it were.
Absolutely. Matt, you got anything?
No, it's just something that popped in my head, is that we're talking about death of a person, like cease lifing. But I mean, it also could be a death of a relationship or friendship or something, or someone moving away. And that also does have the same impact too. And you do want to remember the good times and focus on those and learn from those. But the bad times are there too as well. But again, you're still learning from those and growing from those bad times, so you don't repeat it for next time.
There's an added piece to this that just kind of clicked into my head, was the fact that there's also when you turn into a different person, as you grow and you separate from the person you used to be, there can be a mourning process of that, of going like, oh, well, I was this person. And I think sometimes you can get stuck on who that person is rather than who you are now. And I know I did for quite a while. I got stuck as I was the soldier, I was the whatever title you want to add onto it. But that's part of these processes, right? Is that if there's going to be a loss, if you're talking about an external loss, that's one thing. There's also internal losses. There is relationship losses. There's all kinds of things. So I think it applies to everything, at least in my mind. What do you think, Shaun?
I think that if someone is clinging to the idea that they used to be a soldier, or maybe, clinging to a title that they used to be back in the day, that is a non-growth mindset. That is clinging to something that you're not anymore, nor will you ever be. And by clinging to it, you're diminishing the power of your life by not moving out of that moment, by not moving forward. And so if you're comfortable clinging to the past as if it's still today, you should be giving yourself a failing grade a year from now. And I think that, every time on my birthdays, I think briefly how much of an idiot I was a year ago at my other birthday. And every year that's gone by for quite some time now, I look back and I think, jeez, how embarrassing that year ago Shaun was. If you're not thinking that, you should be. You should be looking back at your past performances and shaking your head and thinking, well, thank goodness I'm doing it a little bit better this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Matt, you got any thoughts on that?
I think I was an idiot a month ago, let alone a year ago.
Dude, yesterday.
Yeah, right. Stupid stuff I did. No, I know that the old me is dead. Like back when I was in a bad relationship and just going south, that dude is dead. Like I don't mourn him because I know that I'm better and I've grown from that bad experience. And that empowers me every day. I look at old photos when my Microsoft, whatever pops up and goes, hey, this was you fat, slow, dumb person 3 years ago, right? Put that beer down. And now it's like, dude, I'm not going back to that. So I'm taking that as an anniversary, that reflection as that's most powerful thing in the world for me to move forward.
Yeah, totally A+.
Mm-hmm. A+ for sure. It's kind of funny you mentioned that because my son, we were sitting at the breakfast table this morning, and we were eating, and my youngest asked me, "What's a junkie?" And I was like, "Interesting." Conversation starter that just kind of came out of the blue. So I explained it to him, and he was just like, "Oh, kind of like how you used to be with beer." And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you always used to have a beer. Anytime we wanted drinks, you wanted to have a beer. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. And I didn't drink a lot, but I drank it basically every day. And
Then you drank a lot.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. I didn't drink to excess.
No need to rephrase. You drank a lot.
I drank a lot, sure. So I was like, yeah, that's true. I did drink beer quite a lot. So, but now I don't. And they go, oh yeah, now you don't. So you're not a junkie anymore? And I was like, I guess I'm not. But it was it's kind of interesting that you put it that way. In that, I think that we all can get caught up in the normalcy that we have created for ourselves, and if we allow it, 10 years will disappear before you even realize it. And then you'll just have 10 years of a hole to dig yourself out of. So start looking at yourself. Start looking at yourself yesterday and see how you can do it better. and then do that, at least in my mind.
Or maybe listen to your 11-year-old.
Or listen to your lovely and calling you a junkie. So that's all I got for today. Any final thoughts, Matt, on anniversaries or anything we've gone over today?
Respect them, but don't fall in the trap of mourning them constantly. I mean, for me, Remembrance Day, we talked about Remembrance Day real quick, and I'm just going to talk real quick too. For me, it's more of an internal personal thing. It's not going out and like, oh, I went to the event, or oh, I went to, the Legion. And for me, it's internal. I spend my moment, I reflect, and then I carry on because I know that's what works for me. Do what works for you, but at the same time, positive growth every day, every moment. And you can do that here.
On the collective. Trying to take over my job, eh? Shaun, you got some final thoughts?
I'm just going to leave it with Matt just took over your job. So there you go.
It's all yours, man. I'll send you my stuff. You can have it. You're good to go. No, but anything else? You good?
No, that was great.
Last comment here. Salty Jinx says, pedestal and shine a light on as a way of remembering. It's when we go all the way through the emotions and break down the parts needed to grow that we find a better way to remember and progress. 100%. That is solid. But yeah, thanks very much for the conversation. I am going to go probably smash out another run, even though I am sore from yesterday, because I'm going to do it better than I did last year. And last year, I did not go for a run. This year, I am going to go for a run. Matt, really appreciate the convo. Shaun, always appreciate the convoy. The convo, not the convoy. And I really appreciate it so that we can all learn how to do things better, especially build upon anniversaries and grow our own understanding of ourselves and who we're supposed to be. And you can do that with us every day on the collective. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.
Chimo.